Picture it. Your head still hurt?
Yeah. No, it's good. Let's see. All right, Brian, we're live. So
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Yeah, we both got our second shot. We're immune. The pandemic's over. That's it, man.
You got your second shot.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. You're gonna get yours. It's gonna be great.
Slow down. You're celebrating too soon.
It's gonna be great. Didn't hurt at all. Everyone get their shot. All right. So today we're gonna talk about school Wi-Fi. So yeah, there's a lot of school Wi-Fi out there. You know, there's big schools, small schools, colleges, universities, K through 12, and we deal with all these guys on like a normal basis, day-to-day basis, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the smaller schools, the bigger ones, kind of do their own thing. But you know, we talk to them too. We kind of know what they need to do.
Yeah.
And you know, in this past year, like, school Wi-Fi has become even more important. You know, they're trying to keep kids separated, and I know we talked last week about outdoor Wi-Fi. So a lot of the schools are building up their outdoor Wi-Fi, so you know, students could go to the parking lot if they didn't have good Wi-Fi at home or whatever.
But everybody's starting to move back in, right?
Yeah, everyone's starting to move back in now, right? And they you know, they have new requirements now. I think there's a lot more devices in these schools. You probably know more on that than me. But I think they have some, you know, the teachers have some sort of intercom systems that use Wi-Fi and you know, new tools to kind of keep people separated.
Yeah, so, last week we talked about outdoor Wi-Fi and outdoor Wi-Fi for schools. So now we're kind of talking about more the internal space, right? So, like, our school district is going back 5 days a week now.
Yeah.
So for K-12, obviously, but so a lot of devices, a lot of Chrome laptops,
Chromebooks, yeah, a lot of Chromebooks. So
the major thing.
Yeah, these things. So yeah, and these things have not great specs to them, so they need to have strong Wi-Fi. We're probably back to where we're putting like one AP in a classroom. I know they tried to get away from that and said, oh, you don't need that. You know, maybe one for every 2 classrooms or 3 if you have good APs. But now you may be into multiple APs per classroom.
Yeah. The last 3 schools that we did, it was APs per room.
Per room, yeah.
8 AP per room.
AP per room, yeah.
People are starting to catch on to that. And the reason for that is because you have to consider your weakest device in a lot of those scenarios. So that's why you do AP per room. And we use our wall plate.
Yeah.
Here.
So no, that's the ECW 115. That's a wall plate AP. Now, I would think this one would come in more in a university situation, where in a dorm or something, where you need to have an AP in every dorm room, right?
That's right. Yeah. So, they're so K-12 is normally a ceiling mount, like you're saying.
Yeah.
And then when you move into like the university level student housing, for example, it's more so the wall plate, almost like a hotel setting.
Yeah.
Wall plate for every room.
Yeah. So you have a few people in every dorm room. You want them to have Wi-Fi there, and you use that wall plate for that. Now, in a classroom situation, you have 40, 50 kids in there. You want to have like a high density access point, like the ECW 230.
Yep, and that's what they're deploying. You can even use the 2x2, but we always recommend the 4x4. So there's the ECW 220 and then the ECW 230. The 230 has more antennas, and it's a 4x4. The output power's slightly higher. You're turning that down anyway, but you have more antennas on the 230. So you can handle a lot of devices on the 220, which is a 2x2, and the 230. You can handle a lot of devices. So concurrent. We're talking concurrent devices. So in like a university setting, a school setting, where you have hundreds of students, one device would handle it, but you have to. You probably want, in a large setting, you probably want more than one.
Yeah.
To do all the work.
Yeah. So we're moving from the classroom into like into like an assembly hall or a gym or something like that, then you'll need multiple APs in there because you could have 1,000 people in there, right? So maybe maybe you need like 4 or 5 APs in to handle a situation like that.
Right. Yeah. So we do get that question. I know we didn't talk. We weren't going to talk about that, but you can mix and match your access points, the hardware, and they have specific needs. Like the wall plate is good for like a dorm room or even a classroom or a hotel room, a small classroom, I would say, for this guy. And then you can move into like the 220, which is a slightly larger classroom, and then the 230, which is like auditorium.
Yeah.
But because we're price so competitive, you can use 230s pretty much.
Yeah, I'd recommend 230s in any classroom situation, and then multiples in like a area where you have people assembling. I mean, that may not be happening so much now, but it will again soon, I think.
Yeah.
So then, all right. So those are like the different scenarios where you'd use the access points in the schools. Now, as we get into like universities where let's say we want to keep track of every single device, what would we do there? What new mechanisms do we have to handle that?
Yeah, it's not necessarily keeping track of like the devices, but it's how you deal with the traffic. So there's multiple methods, and vendors pretty much do it the same way. They just call it different things. We have 2 newer features. There's VLAN pooling, and VLAN pooling allows you to have, multiple VLANs under one SSID. So you can create a pool of VLANs. Say you have 3 or 4 VLANs that is configured for the SSID, like it's a student SSID. And as students onboard to that SSID, the access point is basically assigning a different VLAN for everyone that's associating to the access point and to the SSID.
Right.
So every student is being assigned to a different VLAN. So you're separating out the students among VLANs, and you're separating the traffic as well.
Yeah, so that's VLAN pooling. So in that case, you'd set up, let's say, 4 VLANs with their own IP range and DHCP servers, and then basically it's going to break up that broadcast domain so that it's not saturating one network, right? So you have 4 separate VLANs, 4 separate DHCP servers, and then the students that are once they get their IP address, they'll be able to roam to another building and maintain that same IP address. So if they're using Skype or some other streaming platform, they won't lose the connection. It'll reassociate faster, and they'll keep the same IP address. Yeah,
that's right. You could literally have hundreds of access points broadcasting to SSIDs. Say, for example, a staff SSID and a student SSID, and you can have VLAN pooling on the student SSID where it's assigning these VLANs.
Yeah.
And as these students, once they associate to the access point, they're assigned to to a VLAN. They can roam to those 100 of APs. They're still going to be on the same VLAN and get the same IP address.
Yeah, that's nice.
Throughout the whole campus, while the staff is on their own SSID, maybe they're on a different VLAN and they're on one VLAN. It's not set up with VLAN pooling, and you separated the staff and the students.
Yeah.
But you have VLAN pooling running on the larger client base network, basically.
Right. There's less staff, and then they can have access to like school resources that maybe the students don't have access to.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So then, what about dynamic VLAN? That's a whole nother way of breaking things up.
Yeah, it's kind of similar. Basically every student with a pre-shared key can be put on their own VLAN.
Dynamic pre-shared key.
Dynamic.
Yeah.
Dynamic. We call it MyPSK.
MyPSK. Yeah. So every vendor calls it something different. So what it basically is you'll have an SSID that will be encrypted with 802.1x authentication, and on the back end, it has a list of passphrases, one for each one for each student, or even one for each student device. So as the student, each student knows their own passphrase.
That is also tied to its own VLAN.
Right. That's also tied to the own VLAN. So when that student puts in their passphrase, one, we know who they are, and we assign them to their VLAN, their own individual VLAN.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they can walk the whole campus and have resources. They're tied to the same resources every time.
Right.
But if they have special resources, like in their dorm, they're tied to those resources as well. So if I need to print, say I'm in the administrative office and I need to print to my printer, I can print to their printer.
Right.
That makes sense.
Right. So that's really good. That's, helping to keep track of the students, keeping their traffic separate, because you don't know what they're doing. Like you don't want them like file sharing or anything like that. Like, not that anyone really does anymore. You don't want students like torrenting in the campus, like sending movies back and forth or whatever. So this will separate them.
The biggest thing is to be able to walk that campus and have access to your resources, your personal resources.
Yeah.
Say it's in your dormitory. That's one of the bigger things.
Right.
Right.
So yeah, the MyPSK, that's really great for schools. I mean, because before that you'd have to have your own. You have to have like your own. Certificate infrastructure in the school, maybe an LDAP directory or something, and maintain like all your users and things like that. Now you can, do it with this MyPSK, and you can import a file with like all these users, and you can do it every day if you have to, right?
Yeah. You can't. Well, what we do is you can build them within the cloud management system, right? Yeah. The other nice thing about MyPSK is you can set a expiration date.
Yep.
As well. So my pre-shared key will expire after, say, the first semester, or the whatever semester, right? So you can also do that as well.
Right. So they're not like coming back, 4 years after they graduate and still being able to get in with that with that passphrase. So yeah, that's a good way to do it without like taking a lot of the school resources. All right. So what else with the school Wi-Fi? And I know we're moving into Wi-Fi 6 now, so we got to talk about the switching a little bit, I guess. Like we have a bunch of switches coming out that support multi-gig, right?
Yeah, multi-gig, 10 gig, yep.
So a lot of these can run over your existing cabling infrastructure. So if the schools already have like Cat 6e or better, in the walls, they can upgrade their switches and get at least 2.5 gig to the access points and back to like their core network, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can have the Cat 5e is the minimum, right?
Yeah.
You can't go below Cat 5e. You can pass 10 gigabit on Cat 5e if you need to. So you can use the existing cable.
Yeah.
Why'd you laugh at me?
No, because I'm passing 10 gig. I know it's like probably not in the spec, but under like 50 feet you can pass 10 gig, no problem.
Yeah. So that's the great thing about these multi-gig and 10 gig switches. You can use the existing cable. Now you might want to update the cabling anyway because it's just really old, so you might have to do it anyway. But you can utilize the existing cable. So that's the beauty of those
multi-gig.
Multi-gig, yeah.
Yeah, because the cabling is a huge expense. Like if it's already done, let's say the school is getting some E-rate money, or they're on the PEPM contract or something, and they have money to buy equipment, but maybe not infrastructure, maybe not have cabling done, right? So they can go out and they can buy multi-gig switching and upgrade their entire network, like to faster speeds, more than double the speed.
Right.
And I know you have some. Can you talk about any new switches you have coming out that have more ports, maybe, or?
Yeah. So we have a lot of switches coming out. We even have 4-port switches coming out. So 4-port multi-gig switches. So I'm pretty excited about that. I don't know why, but I am.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of clients that use small density switches ports. Large scale like kind of projects, so I guess that's why I'm probably excited about that. But we have a 24 port coming out and a 48 port switch coming out. They will be multi-gig switches. They will be multi-gig on several of the ports.
Yeah.
Like a majority of the ports. I can't remember the port
Right.
count
There's maybe
off the top of my
8
head.
ports that are multi-gig, and the rest are gigabit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
With SFP plus uplink ports. So yeah, there's two that are more immediate that are coming out. We just launched two half-powered gigabit switches, but yeah, we will have 24 port, 48 port multi-gig switches coming out as well.
Yeah, I mean that's important because multi-gig is still and 10 gig is still pretty expensive. So, you'd use maybe 8 ports for access points, and then use the other gigabit ports for any like legacy devices that aren't going to utilize that 2.5 gig port. Phones and things like that, right?
Right. Yep. I was trying to find the spec really quick. Yeah, so just to give you an idea, so 32 on the 48 port, 32 gigabit ports, 16 2.5 gig ports, and 4 SFP plus ports.
Yep. Okay. So what else with school Wi-Fi can we talk about?
Yeah.
what are the requirements? Like,
Well, roaming's always a big thing, right? So
yeah.
you're just basically using best practices, site survey. We talked about site surveys.
Yeah.
The predictive and then the on-site survey. So your roaming and AP placement should be set by that point. But yeah, I think they're the major things. It's good to understand that you can use different hardware spec for different scenarios, right?
Yeah. What about the cloud reporting? So I know we talked about that's one of the newer features too. So with Ingenious Cloud, you can kind of go in there and run some reports and see like what kind of traffic the students are utilizing the most, right?
Yeah, that's one thing that it wasn't available when we first talked about it. So reporting is a key thing. So you can schedule weekly reports on basically everything we're managing, and that includes client devices. The other thing that you can do that we haven't talked about is you can export client lists now, which is also great for kind of like troubleshooting and understanding kind of like what's happening on your network.
Yeah.
So there's two really nice things, like the reporting, the scheduled reporting, where you can pull and see what people are doing, students are doing.
Yeah.
And then you can also extract just the client list. You don't have to do a full report. You can extract it at any point. You can extract that. And that pulls it into a CSV.
You're thinking vaccine, Brian. It's still sore.
You can extract it into that, or export it into that type of file.
Yeah, so with that reporting, you could basically, with the Ingenious reporting, you can schedule a report, let's say every week or every month, and you can look at, where the traffic's growing within the school. So that really helps you to, like, maybe you want to redeploy your access points to different areas. Like, if you can see that one area is not being utilized, you have this expensive resource access point in there. You may say, oh, this one's hardly being utilized. Maybe we got to move it over here where I see a lot of utilization.
Yeah, exactly.
May want to put 2 access points in this classroom because this one's getting hammered. So you can run that report and kind of redistribute your resources based on what you see going on in the network, right? If you see a switch is getting saturated, maybe that's time to move up to multi-gig, in that area, right?
Yep. Yeah. So the dashboard helps with that kind of scenario, but the reporting will give you like a history of like, okay, this is happening a lot more. Like if you just look at the dashboard, you can see like real time what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And you can pull for a week, you pull for a month, but having a report, being able to show that report to others, sharing that information does, helps out in a lot of scenarios where you're trying to move like resources around and things like that. So yeah, I already see a lot of people starting to use it in kind of those scenarios. So yeah, it's a really nice tool.
It's way more useful because you can look at the dashboard and you come in at a certain time and like everything looks great, and then you don't know what exactly. You can go back and look at it, but without the reporting, you don't know what kind of trends are building over time.
Yep, exactly.
What about the other authentication methods too? I wanted to talk about a little bit for schools. Like, So we have Cloud Radius within Genius, right? They call it. So a user can log in with a username and password, right?
Yeah, so you can set up, so it's Cloud Radius, yeah, and you set up the users within Cloud. You can use an external Radius server as well.
Yep.
So if you already have the users kind of set up, you can utilize that. But within our management system, you can set that up. You can set up all the users within Cloud, and they can authenticate using a password a username and password through that. And so that was something really nice that we added into the tool early on because we saw the importance of that, and so we have a lot of people that use it.
Now, I know with the Pro, how many users can you add to that Cloud Radius now?
I knew you were going to ask me that.
I get that's where the schools are going to want to know because, like, they're going to have hundreds of users, right? Like thousands, maybe.
Yeah, they're going to have thousands of users, but in those scenarios, it's normally an external Radius.
Right.
On the K-12, the smaller ones, that's where you can really utilize. If they don't have the databases set up, then yeah, they could use the cloud.
They're not gonna, right? The K-12s aren't gonna have a Radius server, most likely, unless they run something for the whole school district. So they're the ones that are gonna want to use that Cloud Radius. So, I know we had something where you can import through a CSV file, right? Like Cloud Radius users, or that's coming.
That is coming.
That's coming. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I don't want to put you on the spot there. But so that's a good feature because a lot of these little schools, like, it's just really difficult for them to set up any of this type of infrastructure. But in the meantime, they could use the MyPSK, where.
Yeah, I mean, you can use the cloud. You already talked about it, but like the nice thing about it is you don't have to have a Radius server set up at the location. So if you walk into a particular school and they don't have anything set up, you have the opportunity to say, hey, we can authenticate them against this list of a built list that I'll build for you within the cloud system, and you can tie it to SSIDs as well. You can authorize particular SSIDs, so it makes it really, really simple to do, and you don't have to learn a new thing. In that scenario, you can set it up fairly quickly.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's a great tool, and we have a lot of people that use it. So yeah, I mean, if they don't have it, you have it within the cloud management system that we offer. So
yeah, and like a K-12 could set up, like, let's say they could set up a username and password for every classroom or something like that. If they wanted, they could do something like that. They could do it for every teacher. And they could have their own credentials to get in. Maybe they don't want to do it for every student, but they don't want to just give out a passphrase. They don't want to just change a PSK and give it out to every single student, right? This is way better.
Yeah, definitely. You can pre-configure this.
Yeah.
So there's really two methods. There's the cloud authentication process, or you can go to like MyPSK, and within MyPSK you can auto-generate the pre-shared keys.
Yep.
Or you can create them yourself. So there's a couple methods that you can use when you're setting up SSIDs for us. So you can set up 8 SSIDs, and they can have all different types of authentication policies.
And you can do all this without the captive portal too. Like it's going to ask you when you connect to the SSID, or you can enable the captive portal for the Cloud Radius, and then they'll see. You can have them pop up a screen that has a username and password to log in.
Yeah, you can choose to do that. You don't have to have a splash page.
I know some people are against captive portals, right? Some people don't like captive portals.
No, but you're enabling captive portal, but you're leaving the splash page out.
Right.
But when you enable captive portal, we're basically saying, okay, you want them to hit something first before you log into you get on the network. And what authentication type is that? Is it click-through, Cloud Radius, custom Radius? Is it voucher? Is it social login? What method do you want to use?
Yep.
Or you could choose to use other methods like what we talked about is VLAN pooling or MyPSK, and then you can kind of stack things together if you need to.
Yeah. All right.
It just really depends.
So there's a lot of ways to do it. I'm sure there's a lot of school Wi-Fi questions out there that we didn't answer that people have. So
Oh yeah.
So just ask him in the comments. Yeah, we'll talk. We could talk about outdoor for hours probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if you have any questions, ask him in the comments, and we can have another session on school Wi-Fi. And remember to like and subscribe for more help with Wi-Fi.